if you see that you have an empty calendar, most people assume that if someone asks you for that time, it's therefore theirs. And it's only not theirs when someone else has claimed it, which means that your time only belongs to other people. And then you're surprised by the fact that your investment of time has yielded nothing for you when you've given the only and most valuable asset that you have to everyone else, who often give a very poor return on it for you. And so in the beginning, if you don't have money, the only thing you have is time. And so that is the only thing it's the only currency you can spend to improve yourself or get closer to your goals. And so if that's the one currency you have, then why on earth would you give it away?
I think it's genuinely right to say that your calendar is a better measure of your wealth than your bank account.
It's also the easiest way to know where someone's going to be in 5 years or even a year.
How so?
You just see where they're investing their time, and you can predict like more accurately what their life is going to look like in a year based on what they're doing today. And it's a good thing, for us. It's hard for me not to put the business stuff into it, but a reminder that the life that I'm living today is a result of the work that I did 6 and 12 months ago. And so if you were to look at my calendar 6 and 12 months ago, then you might extrapolate out to what I'm doing today. But just like people want the immediate reward, they also see their current condition as a result of the behavior they're doing today, it's not at all. And so that's why I think having, in some ways, a very vivid imagination of, like, this is where I think the benefit of, quote, visualization comes into play. I don't see it as much as a benefit for like, oh, I have to imagine this thing to happen. But I think it's more powerful to think, I'm doing this thing today and I'm imagining it happening. So it's an approximation of the feedback loop that you want to have. And so it helps you substitute and get through the period where nothing's actually happening.
This is, it was so cool to learn this. Going to the gym is one of the very few pursuits that you can do where in the act of doing the thing, you get a brief window into what it will be like if you continue to do the thing. Yeah. If I go on Duolingo and try to learn Spanish, I don't briefly become much better at Spanish, like where I'm going to be at in 6 months or 12 months time. But if I go to the gym and get a pump on, I go, hey, that's me, hopefully, flat in 9 months time. Like how I look now at the end of the session is where I want to be toward the end of this year. And that reinforcement loop is so good. I think I genuinely think no one's spoken about this.
The pump preview.
Yeah. But like that, I think, is the feedback mechanism that makes the gym so compelling. It's one of the reasons why it makes the gym so compelling. You get this brief window into a future version of you and you go, fucking, dude, my delts look fucking awesome. I can't wait for that to be how I look when I wake up on a morning. And you go, okay, that's how I'm going to get that. And that's why it's so gratifying, right? It works in the moment and it works over the long term.
So one of my closest friends, Dr. Kashi, and I talk about this. But the difference between experts and beginners is that experts have more ways to reward themselves in a given condition. And so if you think about an expert salesman, there are so many interactions they can have that they are good at, that they can find rewarding and positively reinforcing. And so the goal is to develop enough skill that your external environment and conditions can deliver enough positive feedback that it can become self-sustaining.
Give me a tangible example.
So if you're an editor and you edit videos for a living, in the beginning, you have to, you watch a video and then you try the thing. And if it doesn't work, there is a feedback loop, it's null. And then you go back, you try it again, and then you do get a positive feedback. Oh, I made that transition happen. Or I made that color grading occur, whatever. I'm talking you get the idea. There are some roles like sales and editing where there's a lot of people who are music, where people become passionate because there's enough fast feedback loops in the beginning where they can try something and then get good. A master musician can pick up any instrument and have positive feedback loops everywhere. And so the more you master any skill, the more ways you can win. And so and that's ultimately what makes the rich get richer is that because everything is so positively reinforcing, because they start to develop skills, then they do more and more of it. And as they do more of it, the rich get richer, the better get better, the better become best. And then everyone who's starting out is like, how on God's earth does this guy have this work ethic? But it's really that he has high levels of skill. And all right, I'm going to go on a tangent here, but I think it's going to be worth it. So I think about everything in terms of skills. And I have more or less divorced myself from the words like feelings, psychology, intuition, whatever. I've just taken it out of my vocabulary and character traits and tried to focus ruthlessly on what are the actions that I can take to become patient. And if you say, hey, be patient, what does someone do, right? They have to figure out what to do in the meantime. That's the definition of patience. If you say, hey, be more charismatic, the problem with that directive is that it's a bundled term. And so I say charismatic, but what it really means is 12 skills underneath of it. That means that when you walk into a room, stand up straight. When you walk into a room, look everyone in the eyes. When you walk into a room, announce yourself, speak louder, shake people's hands, and look at them while they're talking. When someone talks, nod your head. If you do all of these 12 behaviors or 15 behaviors, people will begin to describe you as charismatic. And in the path of personal development, we want to become more of these things, but we haven't chunked down the bundled term into the series of behaviors that create the description that people will then call us later. And I think by breaking things down, then it's not like, oh, I'm just not that insert character trait. It's really, oh, I have not mastered these 12 skills. And so by doing that, it demystifies.
Much more precise.
Exactly. This is from a business perspective, also really good for training employees. So like, for example, on our team, I was like, Caleb was the first person who did video with me that I ever enjoyed. And so I was like, why? And then somebody else came in and I was like, I'm not having as much fun in these sessions. And I'd like to recreate the conditions of success. And so how can I make it so that I
operationalize fun?
Exactly. And
the most Alex Hormozi thing I've ever heard. Hey, guys, let's operationalize fun for a moment.
And so we had to, but then this is the part that everyone misses, is that you then have to look with a microscope and say, what are all the little things that Caleb does that other people don't do? And so it turned out when he was behind the camera, he would be nodding his head. And if I said a banger line, he would stick his thumb out. And so I'd get these many positive reinforcement loops while I was recording. And then as soon as I was done, he would come over and be like, dude, that was fire. And then he would take out his phone and have all of these really interesting follow-ups because I could see that he was actively listening and he had thoughts. And so then when we retrained the team, we said, hey, when Alex is talking, nod your head slowly so he sees that you're actively listening. If he says something cool, do one of these, give him a thumbs up. And then all of a sudden, my recording sessions without Caleb became as good as my recording sessions with Caleb. And we operationalized Calebism, right? And so I could say, I just need you to be more like Caleb, but that's not helpful to somebody. But if I said, I need you to do all these things, then I can operationalize that. The reason I'm hitting on this so hard is because this has been such a core change in how I see the world. And it has been so useful in terms of bending reality to what I would like it to be, because there's this huge disconnect between what people want, how they describe what they want, and what it takes for that to occur. And by being able to look with detail about the character traits or the things that people who are better than you at a certain thing do, you can then stop being like, man, people think I'm a dick. It's like, well, if someone says stop being a dick, not helpful. I mean, good to know that whatever I'm doing is not working, but doesn't give me any active directions. And so we just try to break down adacquisition.com, but in general, and for myself, what is the 18 things that I have to do? And oftentimes it's significantly more things, but they're also much easier than you think. If I just said, I need you to nod your head while you're going on camera, it's not that complicated to understand. And so when you break it down that way, all of a sudden you wrap your arms around it and you're like, oh, so this is what it takes in order for me to be an exceptional videographer. This is what it takes for me to be an exceptional podcaster. I'm sure, and we call it, like, this is why I love living by checklists. But right now, if I were to say, hey, what makes a good podcast? You'd be like, probably about 128 things or more, right? But everyone on the outside says, you're so natural on camera. You ask such thought-provoking questions. Like, man, you just get the best guests, right? And you're like, sure. And so but the thing is I think this is the mysticism. This is the unknown that the beginners or the people who are at the very beginning of their path don't understand, is that there is no magic. There is no mysticism. There is no spirituality around this. Everything comes down to behavior. And by doing that, you can take out all of the hullabaloo, all of the voodoo that unfortunately is so prevalent on social media. And so when you hear the podcast clips and whatever of people saying you just need to be more this, if they haven't described it by a behavior, it is useless. And so this has allowed me to also separate signal from noise when I'm consuming content in general, or if I want to learn something, I'm immediately thinking, well, what does this mean that I have to do? And if someone can't break it down into the behaviors, then they don't know either. And they may be very good at the thing, but they may be very bad at teaching it. And being able to separate those two skills, because those are skills too, being able to transfer a skill is a skill, will allow you to audit who you're listening to so that you can get the highest return on your effort, because then you know that you're doing activities that lead to the outcome that you want.